Okay, we'll go ahead and start. Welcome to my virtual cottage. I am Nadeshiko Gatsby, the Wisteria Witch, and here today we will be talking about non-descon. All right, before we get things started here, just a quick spiel about Fansview Fridays. This is something we do live every Friday on my Twitch channel. Basically, we go through my old friend Kevin Lillard's convention reports. We pick a convention report from his various collection here on his website. He ran a website called Fansview, and this was the penultimate site where you wanted to go to look up convention news, what was going on at the convention, and he would post photos as the convention was going on. This is way before Instagram, way before social media. So he would actually take photos with a camera, upload it onto his computer, and then from his computer, upload them to the internet, all in this presentation, as you see here on Fansview. Fansview is survived by archive.org, and we all know that archive.org can go down at any time. So this is just our way to preserve the past in a way that's interactive, that we can all enjoy this together, because part of the joy of Fansview was looking at the website as photos were coming up. Kevin didn't tag specific cosplayers. There was like no tagging system back then. What you would do is you would just go on the website, let it load, and just enjoy every single moment Kevin Lillard has captured. And I really feel that we're missing that in the anime community these days. Another preface I wanted to add before we go further into NandesCon, I want you to take a look at the dates carefully. This convention took place after September 11th. I was wondering why there was a Red Cross advert on this website, because normally Kevin would have like Anime Nation or like an anime store banner on here. And then I remembered NandesCon 2001 was right after 9/11. I actually did have friends who still were brave enough to hop on an airplane days after 9/11 to attend NandesCon, and they were telling me, it's like, yeah, if there's any terrorism on the flight, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start kicking their butts. So with that said, let's take a look at this time capsule of NandesCon 2001. Animator Scott Frazier left, and actor Scott McNeil traveled to Colorado. Some people couldn't wait to get to Colorado for the convention. Oh yeah, it's my buddy Jan. Hi, Jan. May Jan rest in peace. I miss her. I wish I could have seen her one more time before her passing. C'est la vie. She was actually my inspiration for my book, The Fangirl Diaries, because one day she had a live stream and she and her buddies were talking about convention parties, about her experience and reminiscing about that. And like, hey, can I reminisce about my millennial experience? All right. Colorado native Jan Scott Frazier, who now lives in Virginia, was one of the first NandesCon guests of honor spotted on Friday. That's no cowboy or trucker, that's actor Scott McNeil. He looked a lot like a typical good old boy when he showed up on Friday. And by the way, on the day of this broadcast is the anniversary of Gundam Wing streaming on Toonami. Imagine that. Like, it's really been that long. Wow, that just gives me a lot of memories of back then. Give me 1 second here. Sorry about that. I just had to fix something because I made a typo on my Gundam Wing anniversary post. Pencil board King Abel and dealer's room King Glenn looked over some dojinshi. I wonder if that dojinshi is spicy. Well, a big crew started to set the dealer's booths 4 hours before opening time. In the wake of September 11th terrorist attacks, the Star Spangled Banner can be seen everywhere, even on Japanese sport bikes in the hotel parking lot. Just for context and why this is such a time capsule, it was very en vogue to have the American flag displayed and have like American flag motifs. Like you can even see it in some of the para para videos where you have the para para dancers wearing a tank top featuring the American flag colors. On the left is the only representative of the Cosling McCreary family to head to Idaho for the Colorado convention. On the right is one of two people he brought with him to the event. West Coast superfan Rob Miles always wanted to run a convention. He gets a chance in 2002 when he chairs YowiCon. Seen for the first time on this site is the guy, that's right, the guy who won the wet t-shirt contest at the 2008 ACACon. He headed south from Portland, Oregon for NondisCon. We got the earliest Colorado costumers. All right, let's just take a look see here. We have Schoolgirl Lum. I have a feeling I know what this is from, but I'm not quite sure. If you know what it is, shout it in the comments. We got Digiko, we got Kenshin, we have Duo. We also have some Final Fantasy 7. All right, we have some Final Fantasy. Got Dragon Ball over here. Scrolling through, I believe that is Galaxia. Thank you so much. Welcome to Sound of the Sixth Wave. I'm glad that you enjoyed my book. And if you do enjoy my book, do leave a review for us on goodreads.com. That really helps us move the needle. And also leave a review for us on amazon.com because that would helps us stay relevant within the algorithm. Unfortunately, I know these secrets, for us to just kind of stay within the algorithm, leave a review. But thank you so much for all your support. I always appreciate fans. I always appreciate my readers. And I'm just so happy to finally be doing this stream again because I've been on hiatus for the past few weeks because it's either I've been on another podcast or if I've been on, I already did that page. My Fridays just tend to fill up. I'm just always happy to see folks here on the stream. Just scrolling down here. Oh, I like that eye patch. That looks cute. I know we get more views on the video on demand than when we are live. But even if there's one or two people on the stream, I'll still just go through photos because I do believe what I'm doing is very important for the community and also just preserving fandom history. Got some Slayers over there. Oh, hey, it's Komi. How are you? I was just listening to Slayers today. Believe it or not, my therapist actually recommended, just connect yourself with childhood, connect yourself with nostalgia. So I ended up just redoing my playlist for my book because it's very trendy to make playlist for your book. So I have it on Spotify and I was just redoing the playlist. And I've added some Slayer songs. I've just added anime openings of songs I've enjoyed in my middle school years, in my high school years. Oh, awesome. I'm glad that it sounded like your collaboration went well. How did it go? All right. Okay, we just looked through some photos here. Okay, Taliesin Yaffe hung out with the fans. Sorry, let's just take a here for Taliesin Yaffe. This author rode from the airport to the convention hotel with actor, director, and sound producer and writer Taliesin Yaffe. A few hours later, Yaffe was spotted hanging out in the halls and chatting with the fans from his recent efforts. He had finished working with Amanda and Jason Lee's Gaijin Productions on the English language dub of Neon Genesis Evangelion movies. I think you'll be plenty pleased with the mix, Yaffe said, noting that the production was heavy on booming, deep bass sound effects that would take a powerful subwoofer to properly appreciate. Only the part of the work on a complex show like Evangelion goes into the acting. There's probably more time spent on the audio mix, getting it right with the balance of actors' voices and sound effects. Much of the Eva movie dub will use the original sound effects, but Yaffe said there will be some scenes where new effects had to be invented or created from sounds found in other parts of the movie. We just did the scenes with multiple rays, and we had 5 rays laughing at once. It was awesome, said Yaffe. Of course, I know what scene he's talking about. It's the job of Yaffy and the others working on the show to make sure that fans hear only the coordinated sonic assault during the battle scenes and aren't left thinking that the scenes were engineered. A chance meeting with Naya Under 7 costumer led Hafi to chat about the series, which he produced the English dub. Yafi was enthusiastic about the lead actors in the series, newcomers J. Ray as the oddball Naya and Trisha Dixon as the long suffering roommate Mayuko. Their splitting image of the characters, Yafi added that J. Ray is so much like Naya, it's frightening. She's about 80 pounds and has spiky hair, and she's a surfer. While Yafi liked the Naya cast, he admit it took them a few episodes to really get into the characters, which was just in time for the later episodes, which turned the movie more serious than comedic. And Yafi said Naya took less time to produce than the Ava movies because they're just talking, nothing's blowing up. More customers followed on Friday. All right, let's just take a look here. Yay, we have a Michiru. Oh yeah, I actually I may know these people. I haven't talked to them in ages, but a while back, this Michiru right here and this Haruka, they actually asked me to be a part of their Sierra Mew group. I was supposed to be their Saturn. I think they might have a few of their folks within these photos here. So let's just take a look, see if I might recognize some of these folks. Cause yeah, I was. It just feels so real, so surreal. Like yeah, I was gonna be in a Sera Mute performance group as Hotaru, and I think they also wanted to do like TLDR. It's Sera Mew, but essentially the story is Sailor Moon meets Dracula. Is as Scooby Doo as it sounds, but the soundtrack kicks a lot of butt. And I wanted to be Sailor S Start for that one, or at least I remember mentioning that I wanted to be a character from that one because they actually did have the costumes done for lack of a better description, Sailor Moon meets Dracula the musical. It's funny too because my circle of friends, we were all Sailor Moon fans, and they called Dracula in that one Alucard. So when my friend Sora was tasked to create an Alucard cosplay, she was like, wait, it's Alucard, but it's not from Sailor Moon, it's from Castlevania. So yeah, scrolling through here. And if you recognize any of these fandoms, any of these costumes, or if you spot yourself here, mention that in the comments. I'd like to hear. I'd also like to hear your convention stories too of NondisCon 2001 if you attended. Oh, there's Misala from Kenshin. Yeah, like I said, the American flag during this time was very prominent. Like a lot of us, regardless of our political backgrounds, were like just hoisting up the American flag or integrating the American flag in whatever way we could. Because it was the style at the time. And just a suggestion for fictitious fiction writers, like really having that post patriotic kind of feeling, and it just quickly died out. Oh, I know you. Yeah, it's my buddy over here. Yeah, the musical Sailor Uranus actually, she actually helped me make my first Sailor Moon cosplays. She actually had a pattern that she drafted out, and basically it's like yeah, it's like this is how you do the collar, blah 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 blah, and I just followed that pattern, and that was just pretty much like my guide to like just making Sailor Senshi outfits. Oh, I might know this Kagome because I know I've seen her cosplay as Noriko at cons. Sometimes I'll like, look back at photos like, yeah, I remember talking to you in passing, but I hope you're doing well. I think I know this who this is, and I have a prediction that she's gonna like the Facebook post that I post this on. Not sure if you want to be outed, but hello. All right, so that's that. All right, Nandeskan paused to acknowledge the devastation of September 11th. So, again, time capsule. Let's just take a look. So, this is our opening ceremonies. An anime convention is celebrating the life and art, but it has to reflect the real world. Nandeskan went on as scheduled after September 11th terrorist attacks. But there was a need to let the convention goers and the world know that things weren't the same after thousands of deaths from the plane crashes. An American flag was front and center when Kelly Wensing started the opening ceremonies. Convention chair Becca Norman spoke at the event to let all excuse me, to let all know that anime fans were hurting as much as the rest of the world. But despite the pain, the convention continued. What builds my faith in humanity is the people we have here, she said, having to fight back tears. I'm glad to see you're okay and will go on. We're stubborn. Anyone who tries to destroy our spirit will have the opposite effect. And convention's volunteer Stephanie Morris followed by singing the Star Spangled Banner. Even anime fans knew that was time to come to their feet for this, a rare moment at conventions. Later, it was announced that Nandiskan would have a Sunday prayer service in remembrance of the attack victims. The convention would make a gesture towards peace by making 1,000 origami paper cranes. Then, the celebration continued with the introduction of the guest of honor. Unable to attend because of travel difficulties were Toshihiro Kawamoto, character designer and animation director of Cowboy Bebop, and Nobu Takahashi, head of Studio Hard. Replacing them was a video game designer, Susumu Sakurai, one of the top producers in the business. I send deepest sympathy and condolences for all affected by this incident, he said. The fun resumed with the introduction of Scott McNeil, the Gundam voice actor. He delighted a laughing crowd with his rapid fire voice stylings, then his hands grabbing for the miniature plush dolls he tossed in the audience. I control the EVA units. I will not be upstaged by them. Came from actor Tristan McAvery, who had recently reprised his Gendo Ikari role for the dub of the Evangelion movies. McAvery also plugged his self published horror novel, Divine Intervention. I'll have to check that out of curiosity. Gendo writes horror. Then came animator Jan Scott Frazier, who just had finished producing a music video in Florida. Author and anime card collector Cynthia Hands, who promised to talk about the Powerpuff Girls children's book she writes. Actor Chalson Jaffe, who promised to talk about his work on Nia Under 7 and the Evangelion movies. Panther Comics, who promised not to damage any loudspeakers after blowing up tweeters in the borrowed last year. Artist Ewan Yule, who promised to enjoy himself at the convention. And Keith Burgess of Manga Entertainment, who promised to show a preview of the Evangelion dub at Nandeskan. Thanks to Nandeskan staff, here's a look at the costume contest entrance. Okay, we're going straight into the costume contest. Oh, I love that Eternal Sailor Moon. Look at it in all its shiny glory. This is definitely an early 2000 aesthetic for cosplay. Okay, scrolling down. I remember I Want to Learn Magic was like one of my favorites when I was in high school. Kenshin. We have Final Fantasy. We have Shampoo. I need to catch up on some Ranma. I need to catch up with the latest Ranma anime. I feel so bad that I'm behind. I just haven't really been in the mood because like I'm an anime mood watcher. So right now I've been watching Love on the Prism, which is basically about a Japanese girl who goes to art school in London. If you're really into art history, I highly recommend. If you're into romance, it's a good story. I kind long story short, I have my opinions, but I love the characters. The characters are just adorable. Okay, let's see here. Scrolling down. Oh, we have sauna. I do love me some Child's Toys. It was like one of my favorites like growing up. Ultra Relax was like one of my favorite like anime openings. We have classic Vash, Serenity, Zelgadis. There's Alucard. We got a gaggle of card captors. See, we got Sid. Yeah, scrolling through here. Aw, now we're starting to see like Final Fantasy 9 characters. I love it. This is also during an era when, especially with Final Fantasy, if the character design sheets came out, people were just rushing to like be one of the first to do it. Case in point, Final Fantasy X Part 2. Yuna and all her dress up spears. Unfortunately, the images are not loading. We'll try one more page and just kind of see where this all goes. Sad face. And regardless, oh hey, we have one more right here. Looks like we have an original Sailor Senshi. We got some speed. We have someone from Princess Mononoke. I need to rewatch the movie. It's been ages. We have Gundam Wing, Serenity, Sakura, Lena Inverse. I'm really liking seeing all the Slayers cosplayers here. Oh, holy snap! It's a Magnetic Rose. So, so I've made this costume twice, and I am determined to make it a third time. I just need time to like work on that because it is a big foofy dress. I love that the American flag is in the background. I need to save this image for a friend. All right, let's just take a look. Usually Kevin does like, hey, a winner circle post. And now we have costume contest winners from Colorado. All right, who won? Shall we know? No, first place. Where are you, first place? Second place went to this Mokona. I love that. Third place went to Alucard. The pre-teen award. Oh my god, they went as Tyler. I do love me some Captain Tyler. Someone once asked me, like, hey, do you watch Star Trek Lower Decks? Like, no, we have that at home, and it's called Irresponsible Captain Tyler, or it's also called Martian Successor Nadeshiko. Gaming Costume Award. That is an amazing Alucard. I approve. Audience favorite went to the Card Captor crew. This is awesome. All right, and looks like we're going to Kevin's final thoughts. It seemed like an exuberantly irrational decision in mid-July. There were two anime conventions in two cities, 1,200 miles apart on the same weekend. Why not go to both? Check the airline schedules for the connections, then book the flights and head out to the great otaku adventure. From home to Denver and Nondescon on Friday, and then to Georgia and Anime Week in Atlanta on Saturday, and back home on Sunday. But then came September 11. The freedom of travel that the author enjoyed for 4 years of attending anime conventions seemed to have been blown away with the World Trade Center and parts of the Pentagon. Instead of looking ahead to 4 flights in 3 days, the author was faced with the toughest decision whether it was possible or appropriate to head to conventions. The convention organizers helped make the author's decision easier. First came this declaration from Anime Week in Atlanta. Our duty as Americans is to continue being free and thinking free and acting free, and doing all we can to show that these people we cannot be caged and imprisoned by fear and terror. We will always be free as long as we think and do free. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. In that light, Anime Week in Atlanta will go on as scheduled. We will not be turned into cowards by cowards. Then Becca Norman of NonDiscon announced that the Colorado event would not be stopped. The convention stands for a number of things that terrorists would love to crush. Freedom. For one, the ability to learn, to hear, to be, do, and see things that are new and wondrous. Safety. For another, a place we strive to make that is good and safe place for young people to reach out towards their potential. And friendship, in a place where we believe that every individual who tries to build a bridge to another in this world makes a difference. I love that quote. So the author decided to head to the airport and hope his flights would take place. Amazingly, despite the airline industry's woes and tight security, the author breezed through his trips with no problems. Delta Airlines deserves a lot of credit for keeping their planes in service and running their flights so they arrive ahead of schedule. The author's red eye flight from Denver to Atlanta arrived 30 minutes early. The two flight Friday trip to Denver without a hitch. The only problem came when the author walked outside the Denver terminal, caught this huge feet on the sidewalk, and fell on his face. Oh no. Luckily, the author landed face down and an impact that preserved the webpage equipment he was toting on his back as a backpack. The author had only had 12 brief hours at NonDiscon, although he left a backup camera behind in hopes that someone with the convention could get the pictures of Saturday's night's costumers. By the way, the Holiday Inn, located 9 miles south of the Denver International Airport, turned out to be a good place to hold NonDiscon. The attached convention center had more than enough room to walk for all the convention's events. It required a long, circuitous walk to get from the hotel's lobby to the main events hall. But one fan noted that nothing compared to the quarter-mile treks at Anime Expo. Oh boy, do I know it. And by the way, those quarter-mile treks at Anime Expo, if you've been going to Anime Los Angeles for the past few years, that's Long Beach for you, baby. The author's Friday night return to the Denver airport for a red-eye flight to Atlanta produced some oddities. Major airports usually stay busy at all hours, but the Denver terminal was all but deserted. Part of that might be the Denver curfews on late night operations, but part might be people's reluctance to fly after the terrorist attacks. And the author learned another valuable lesson about human tendencies when he passed through the Denver security checkpoint. Since the hijacking that led to the attacks was apparently staged by men wielding knives, the federal government banned passengers from carrying sharp objects on board planes. Even though the restrictions had been heavily publicized for a week before the author's flight, the Denver security station still had two plastic tubs half filled with scissors, files, and clippers from passengers. And those tubs were surrounded by a dozen seized Swiss Army knives. Late at night, the loudest noises in the concourse C at Denver were vacuum cleaners, but there was a plane sitting at the gate that the author headed to Atlanta for a convention he would not give up. Anime Week Atlanta had the largest facility in its 7-year history, and packed with a big, enthusiastic crowd on Saturday. A friend who operates a booth in the dealer's room said, excuse me, his did more business through midday Saturday than he had done at a current convention in an entire year. Another friend observed that previous week's trauma and the spate of event cancellation, that people had cabin fever and were looking for something else to do. Ironically, faces another search for a home after 2002, as the adjacent Hartsfield International Airport is going to expand a south runway and the hotel convention center. AWA is going to be torn down to make room for airplanes. The convention organizers were fortunate that their events came a week and a half after the attacks. Had the convention had been scheduled immediately after the devastation, travel would have been difficult and the emotional wounds so raw that it would have been hard to justify moving on. Many convention websites, including 2 events held in late September, acknowledged the disaster with messages of sympathy and links to pages that offered assistance and chances to donate funds for that assistance. NonDiscon acknowledged the tragedy by staging a moving opening ceremony under the American flag that mourned the nation's losses and celebrated the free and the enthusiastic spirit of anime conventions. On Saturday at AWA, costumer Ellie wore an outfit that she had made from American flag material bought from a Walmart, created as her response to the previous week's events. The attacks really captured the attention of the nation, and the author couldn't help but note that the connections to his life and as a convention fan to the people he has met. Studio Iron Cat, located in Virginia, had office volunteer whose relatives worked at the Pentagon. Immediately after the attack, those relatives had not been found, but they surfaced shortly afterwards unhurt. The Pentagon is a couple miles from the 2001 sites of Katsucon and Anime USA, and the airliner that hit the Pentagon that took off from Dulles International Airport in Virginia, which from which the author had traveled during his animazement trips. Another flight had been reprogrammed to fly from Cleveland to Washington National Airport, where the author had stopped 6 times on trips to Katsucon and Otakon. The attacks in New York struck Manhattan, not far from the locations that had been planned for Big Apple Anime Fest. Several of the author's actor friends, Crispin Freeman, Lisa Ortiz, Rachel Lillis, Jessica Calvello, live or work in New York. Thankfully, all were unhurt, although one of the actors had been in the World Trade Center on the day before the attack. The Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Florida, where Anime Express is held, may unknowingly have trained one of the hijackers. And there was the film Arlington Road, in which actor Tiffany Grant appeared as an extra. In that movie, actor Jeff Bridges played a college professor who was duped into the fall guy for a terrorist bombing in Washington, D.C. Consider the bitter, cruel irony that piece of fiction would turn into prophecy. Now, compound that with another brand of cruelty: the assaults on people in America who happen to be considered Arab or Islamic and were attacked because of some frustrated people they thought were too close being like those said to be responsible for the attacks. But for those who would condemn Islam, consider a story about that faith's true power, tempered by the American attitude towards the fairness and justice and an individual's ability to change. The story is about a man who, near the end of his life, preferred to be known as El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. He was born Malcolm Little and was best known to Americans as Malcolm X. During his days as a fiery spokesman for the black Muslims, El Shabazz was hated as today's faceless terrorist, and Malcolm X once carried as much hatred of whites in the United States as those terrorists. But El Shabazz had a sense of justice that went far beyond anything shown by those who chose to destroy unknown lives. He wanted to reform, not to kill. And his hatred of whites, driven by the lynching of his father, disappeared once El Shabazz made a pilgrimage to Mecca, Islam's holy city. The sight of thousands of Muslims of all colors and nationalities peacefully circling the Kaaba convinced El Shabazz that his disdain of whites was wrong, but his sense of justice was right. He returned to the United States a changed man, still calling an end to his racial prejudice, but no longer demanding the death of the white race. He moved from the pure radicalism that cost El Shabazz his life when he was shot down in a Harlem ballroom that was located a few miles from the site of the September 11 terrorist attacks. El Shabazz's epiphany was driven by Islam, but it was a sort of moral change that America seems to generate. The moral change that ended Jim Crow in the 1960s. The same American morality that rebuilt Japan from a warlike nation into a peaceful country, making anime conventions possible. The miracle of anime conventions is the way they have shown that people can overcome hate and the terrors of war. It's true that Americans hated Japanese after the attack on Pearl Harbor 60 years ago, but a time period is barely a tick on the longer clock of the world history. But consider that there are still bitter feuds around the world that continue from battles that happened hundreds of years ago. Other countries might still condemn Japan for the 1941 attack, but not anime fans. Japanese artists and their work are welcomed in the US a few generations after the war. There's no hatred of Japanese at conventions, just an appreciation of the mix of American and Japanese culture that makes a vibrant anime, manga, J-pop, J-rock, and video game art forms possible. At Otakon, 1 month before the terrorist attacks, we saw the amazing experience of a room packed with fans who hung on every word of Hikaru Midorikawa. He appeared before that delighted room of people just a couple of days of the anniversaries of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. No one at Otakon noted those anniversaries. They were too busy celebrating the talent of a man who came from a culture of war that had been transformed into a culture of peace. And a profound statement from the aftermath of the war and anime fandom came from at Otakon in 2000 from Yasuyuki Ueda, creator of Serial Experience Lane. For many countries, World War II left a lot of scars. As for Japan, this generation has forgotten about the war. They really don't look back. My grandparents died in the atomic bombing, but I don't feel any hatred or regret. Basically, I want to keep going forward. And with that said, that wraps up for Kevin Lillard's and Nandeskan 2001 report. We hope you enjoyed going back through time with us, taking a look at this Colorado convention's past, and hope you tune in with us next week on Friday for another edition of Fansview Fridays. See you then, and I will see you at the virtual cottage.